take a breath. Pause for a moment before you continue reading. If you ended up here today, it may feel like random chance, but it probably does not feel random to you. It may feel like something inside you was already looking for words like this, even before you saw them. It was not just a coincidence or a simple moment of scrolling. It can feel like something in you was searching, quietly, without full awareness. So stay here for a little while and let yourself just be with this message. Think about that one special person right now. Bring their face into your mind in a clear way. Notice what happens inside you when you do that. Do not rush past it, just observe it. There may be a soft feeling in your chest, a mix of warmth and longing, maybe confusion too, something you cannot easily explain in simple words. That feeling is not a mistake in you. It is your mind and your heart reacting to something that feels important. It can feel like this person did not just appear in your life by accident. It can feel like there is something deeper in the way you feel connected. Even if your mind is still trying to understand it, another part of you already feels familiar with them in a very strong way. And I understand how tiring it can be when you carry feelings like this, especially when things are unclear, especially when you do not know where you stand. It can feel heavy at night, when everything is quiet and your thoughts become louder. You may find yourself replaying moments, reading meanings into small signs, asking yourself if you are overthinking or if something real is actually there. That confusion can be painful. But the depth of what you feel does not automatically mean you are wrong or too emotional. You are not being silly for feeling deeply. You are not too much for having strong emotions. You are simply in a situation that is emotionally intense and not fully settled. That kind of situation naturally creates uncertainty inside you. When someone matters to you deeply, it can feel like your whole emotional world becomes more sensitive. Every message or silence can feel bigger than it should. Every small change can feel meaningful. This is what happens when attachment becomes strong. These kinds of connections do not stay on the surface. They reach into deeper parts of you. They touch places that usually stay hidden in daily life. That is why they can feel so powerful, but also so painful at the same time. At first, love is often imagined as something peaceful, something that finally makes everything feel calm and safe. But real emotional connection is not always calm in the beginning. Sometimes it feels like chaos before it feels like peace. It can shake you. It can bring out fears you thought you had already moved past. It can make old emotional patterns appear again. Things like fear of not being enough, fear of losing someone, or fear of being too much for someone else. Sometimes one person in the connection starts to give more and more. They try harder. They think if they understand better, love better, wait longer, or care more, things will become secure. But slowly, they start feeling exhausted because love starts to feel like effort instead of safety. This person may start to believe that love must be earned, that they must constantly prove their value, that if they stop trying, the connection will disappear. This belief creates a lot of emotional pressure and pain. At the same time, the other person in the connection may react in a very different way. Instead of moving closer, they move back. Not because they feel nothing, but because closeness can feel overwhelming or unsafe to them. For them, emotional distance may feel like protection. If they have experienced pain before, closeness can trigger fear. So when feelings become stronger, they may pull away, not because they do not care, but because they do not know how to stay close safely. So what forms between them can look confusing from the outside. One person feels like they are chasing, the other feels like they are retreating. One feels anxious, the other feels overwhelmed. It can look unbalanced. But underneath all of that, both people are often reacting to fear. Fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of not being enough. They are just expressing it in different ways. One moves toward love, the other moves away from emotional intensity. The person who moves closer often struggles with silence. Silence feels like danger to them. It makes them feel unwanted or forgotten. So they try harder to reconnect. But sometimes trying harder only increases the distance they feel. Over time, this can create emotional exhaustion. A feeling of giving without receiving enough stability back. A feeling of always hoping for clarity, but not getting it fully. This is where emotional burnout can start to build. The person who moves away may also feel something difficult inside. Even if they create distance, they often do not feel fully at peace. Instead, they may feel guilt, confusion, or loneliness. They may also think about the connection more than they show. Distance protects them from feeling overwhelmed, but it also blocks them from feeling close. So they end up stuck between wanting connection and fearing it at the same time. That inner conflict can be very uncomfortable. This is why these connections can feel so intense. They are not just about two people. They are also about emotional patterns, past experiences, and hidden fears that both people carry without fully realizing it. In the middle of this, growth does not usually look clean or simple. It does not always look like clear answers or smooth progress. Sometimes it looks like confusion. Sometimes it looks like mixed signals. Sometimes it looks like silence. But change often starts in messy ways. Like something inside a person slowly shifting without them fully understanding it yet. Like old ways of reacting starting to break down. Like emotional habits no longer working the same way they used to. In many ways, personal change is like transformation in nature. Something old has to loosen or fall apart before something new can form. It is not instant. It takes time. And during that time, things can feel uncertain. These connections often bring out both desire and fear at the same time. You want closeness, but you are also scared of what it might cost you. That inner conflict is one of the hardest emotional states to sit with. It becomes important to understand the difference between attachment and real love. Attachment says, I need you so I feel complete. I need you so I feel safe. I cannot be okay without you. Real love is different. Real love says, I care about you deeply, but I am also learning to stay grounded in myself. I can love you without losing myself in the process. I can want you without abandoning my own needs. At some point, every person in this kind of emotional experience reaches a quiet turning point. It does not usually come with a big event. It does not come with perfect closure or clear answers from the other person. It comes from an inner decision. A moment where you stop waiting for everything to be confirmed by someone else. A moment where you stop measuring your worth based on whether someone chooses you or not. Instead, you begin to choose yourself more clearly. You begin to see your own emotional value without needing constant proof from the outside. This shift changes how you experience everything. Because when you are no longer acting from fear, the emotional energy between you and another person also changes. You are not reaching from panic anymore. You are not trying to earn love through exhaustion. You are simply being yourself more honestly. And in that space, something becomes clearer. You start to see the situation as it really is, not only as you hope it could be. You begin to understand your own needs more deeply. You may realize that love should not constantly make you feel uncertain about your worth. It should not keep you in a constant state of guessing. It should not make you feel like you have to shrink yourself to be accepted. Everything you have felt in this process has mattered. Even the painful moments, even the waiting, even the confusion, none of it is meaningless. These experiences shape you emotionally and teach you about your own depth. Love does not disappear just because it is not returned in the way you want. What you feel is still real to you. It has affected you, changed you, and helped you understand more about yourself. But it is also important to see that love should not only feel like waiting in uncertainty. It should also feel like safety, clarity, and mutual care over time. Without that balance, it becomes emotionally heavy. You are not weak for feeling deeply. You are not wrong for caring. But you also deserve emotional stability, not just emotional intensity. You deserve something that does not constantly leave you questioning where you stand. A healthy connection does not make you feel like you are always trying to fix your place in someone's life. It does not make you feel like love must be earned through struggle. It feels more steady and mutual. What you are moving toward, even if it does not feel like it right now, is something that fits you better. Something that does not require you to lose yourself to keep it. Something where you can breathe more easily. A connection where you are not constantly in emotional tension, where you are not always interpreting silence, where love does not feel like something you have to chase, but something you can share freely. And even if your current situation feels unclear, your capacity to love is not wasted. It is shaping you into someone who understands connection more deeply. Someone who will eventually recognize what is healthy and what is not. What matters now is not forcing answers too quickly. It is learning to stay connected to yourself while everything else feels uncertain. It is allowing yourself to grow through the experience instead of losing yourself in it. Because in the end, real change does not come from waiting for someone else to decide everything for you. It comes from you slowly learning that your own heart also deserves care, stability, and respect. And when that understanding becomes clearer inside you, everything else begins to shift in ways you may not expect, but will eventually recognize as growth. That is not an exaggeration or a poetic idea. That is actually the direction things can move in if what I am about to say is understood and applied in real life. So the question becomes simple, even if it is not easy. What do you do with all of this from this point forward? What does it look like in real life, in your normal days, when your mind goes back to that person again and again? Here is the most important shift, and it will not feel comfortable at first. You stop living outward all the time. You stop building your emotional world around someone else's actions, silence, timing, or confusion. Instead, you slowly start turning back toward yourself on purpose. Not in a fake way, not as a trick to forget, not as punishment, but as a real return to your own life. You begin to bring your attention back home to yourself. You start asking a question that may feel unfamiliar if you have been focused on someone else for a long time. What do I actually need right now? Not what they need, not what they feel, not what might make them change, not what might bring them closer or make them understand. Just you. What do you need in this moment? This question can feel almost strange at first, because when someone becomes emotionally central in your mind, your own needs slowly become background noise. You start reacting to their presence, their absence, their words, their silence. But now the direction changes. You begin to notice your own life again. You begin to notice what you have been ignoring while your attention was locked onto something uncertain. You ask yourself, what would feel supportive today? What would feel steady? What would feel like care instead of stress? What would bring a little more balance back into your system? Then you start acting on those answers in small ways. Not dramatic changes, not sudden reinvention, just simple returns to yourself. You begin to notice the parts of your life you delayed. Things you told yourself you would do when things became clearer, when emotions settled, when this situation finally made sense. But clarity does not always come from waiting. Sometimes it comes from living. So you start doing those small things again, the things that belong to your life, not to your waiting. You reconnect with people you slowly drifted away from, not because you have to explain everything, but because those connections were part of your world before everything narrowed down to one focus. You return to hobbies, interests, routines, or simple habits that used to give you a sense of identity outside of this emotional situation. You do not force excitement. You just reopen space for yourself. None of this means you are denying your feelings. It does not mean you are pretending the connection never mattered. It means you are no longer letting one emotional situation take over the entire shape of your life. Because when that happens, life becomes very small. Everything starts orbiting around one person, one outcome, one possibility. And that creates pressure inside you that becomes harder and harder to carry. What begins to change when you return to yourself is not always dramatic. It is often quiet. But you start noticing it in how you feel during the day. You stop feeling like you are waiting for something to begin. You stop feeling like your life is paused. You stop feeling like everything meaningful is somewhere ahead of you, tied to one outcome. Instead, you start feeling more present in your own life again. You start noticing small things. Your routines feel more real. Your time feels more yours again. Your attention is not completely consumed anymore, and slowly, something shifts in how you carry yourself. You are no longer constantly reaching outward emotionally. You are no longer always measuring yourself through someone else's response or lack of response. This creates a different kind of presence in you, a steadier one. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer abandoning yourself in the middle of uncertainty. People around you can sense this change, even if you do not announce it. There is something different about someone who is not constantly chasing emotional validation. They feel more grounded, more stable, more present in their own life. And this is not something you perform. It is something that happens naturally when your focus returns inward. This is not a technique to control someone else. It is not a strategy to force a reaction. It is not about playing distant to create interest. That approach always comes from insecurity, not strength. What is actually happening is simpler. You are no longer relating to life from a place of emotional lack. You are no longer acting like something outside of you is responsible for your sense of stability. And when that changes, everything feels different inside you first. Then sometimes, relationships around you begin to feel different too. Not because you are manipulating anything, but because your emotional position has changed. At the same time, it is important to understand something clearly about the other person in your mind. They are not a villain in this story. They are not simply cold or careless or emotionally empty. In most cases, what looks like distance is actually protection. It is often the result of past experiences where closeness did not feel safe or stable. So emotional space becomes a habit of self-protection. They may have learned, even without realizing it, that getting too close leads to pain, loss of control, or emotional overwhelm. So when feelings grow, their instinct is to step back. This does not always mean they do not care. It often means they care but do not know how to stay present without feeling overwhelmed by their own emotions. So one person moves closer because closeness feels like connection and safety. The other moves back because closeness feels like pressure or emotional risk. And this creates a push and pull dynamic that can feel very confusing. From the outside, it can look like one person wants it more. But inside, both people are usually dealing with different fears. One fears losing the connection, the other fears losing themselves in it. This is where emotional exhaustion often develops. The person who keeps reaching starts feeling drained. They begin to feel like they are carrying the weight of the connection alone. The person who pulls back may also feel conflicted. They may feel distance, but also think about the connection when they are alone. They may feel relief in space, but also loneliness in that space. So both sides are affected. Both are reacting. Both are trying to protect themselves in different ways. But neither side feels fully at peace in the pattern. This is why the most important change does not begin with the other person. It begins with you. Not because you are the problem, but because you are the only one you can actually fully guide. You cannot heal someone else's fear for them. You cannot remove their past experiences. You cannot make them ready. That is something they have to move through themselves. But you can stop letting their uncertainty define your emotional state. You can stop measuring your worth based on their ability to show up consistently right now. You can choose not to turn their confusion into your identity. You can choose not to make their distance a reflection of your value as a person. And when you make that choice, something very important happens internally. You stop shrinking your life around one outcome. You start expanding it again. You begin to exist in your own story again, instead of living inside a waiting space. You begin to see that your life is not paused. It is ongoing, even in uncertainty. And over time, this changes how you feel inside your own body. The emotional weight that was constantly present starts to loosen. Not because you forced yourself to stop caring, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. Imagine waking up one day and noticing something different. The first feeling is not heaviness. It is not immediate anxiety about what the other person did or did not do. Instead, there is a small sense of space inside you. Not emptiness, space. A sense that your thoughts are not trapped in one loop anymore. You think about your day. You think about yourself. You think about what you want to do, even in small ways. And the connection that once occupied everything now becomes one part of your emotional world, not the entire world. This is what emotional balance begins to look like. Not the absence of feeling, but the return of your full life. You may still care. You may still think about them, but it no longer consumes you. It no longer defines your entire emotional stability. You start to feel more like a complete person again, not someone waiting, not someone incomplete, not someone stuck in pause mode. And from this place, something becomes clearer. If a connection is real and healthy for both people, it will exist in a way that does not require you to abandon yourself to maintain it. It will not demand constant confusion. It will not require you to guess your worth. It will not force you into emotional extremes just to feel connected. Real connection does not ask you to disappear inside it. It allows you to remain yourself while still being close to someone else. And if something cannot exist in that form, then the lesson is not that you are not enough. The lesson is that the dynamic is not balanced in its current form. But your worth was never supposed to depend on a situation being unclear or painful. Your worth does not increase when someone is confused about you, and it does not decrease when someone is distant. What you are learning through all of this is not just about one person. It is about how to stay connected to yourself even when emotions are intense. It is about learning that love should not cost you your own inner stability. It is about understanding that caring for someone does not require losing yourself in the process. And as you keep choosing yourself in small ways, your emotional world begins to reorganize itself, slowly, quietly, but permanently. You stop feeling like life is something that will start later. You start realizing it is already happening now, even in uncertainty, even in unfinished stories. And from that place, whatever is truly meant for you in love will not require you to abandon yourself to reach it.